My name is Lacey. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Realm of Caring Client Orientation. Thank you so much for joining online and in person. We're so happy to have you here. We're going to be talking about a lot of topics today, mechanisms of action, who Realm of Caring is, what we do here, and how you can utilize our services. So I'm really excited to go over this information with you. Please, and if you'd like to ask any questions, do so in the middle or the beginning of the conversation, throughout the slides. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer that during the presentation. There will not be any questions or answers at the end of the presentation today. So let's start talking about Realm of Caring, who we are, what we do, how we got started. So Realm of Caring was informally established in 2012. So Realm of Caring was eventually expanded into what we are today, but it originally started with two parents. Heather Jackson, which is the CEO of Realm of Caring, and Paige Figge, which is the mother of Charlotte, who everybody knows who Charlotte is, but they originally co-parented or co-created Realm of Caring in conjunction with Joel Stanley from the Stanley Brothers. So originally Zakai, which is Heather's son, he has Doza syndrome, so he had seizure onset for about 4 months, 17 pharmaceuticals failed, receiving hospice and palliative care, and was developmentally delayed with autistic tendencies. Since starting CW in 2012, he's been over 3 years seizure-free, pharmaceutical-free, learning and social, significantly reduced autistic tendencies, and better positive side effects, better sleep, better cognition, better appetite, less aggressive or negative behaviors. So seeing someone going from, palliative care to now he's here at Realm of Caring, we see him every day. I get really choked up because I've seen where he's been and how far he's come. And this is the story from many children. So I'm really glad that this happened, and not necessarily that Zakai went through this journey, but the fact that this happened and there was a lot of other families that I get choked up thinking about it. But there's a lot of other families that are going through the same thing that Zakai has, and then there's hope for these families like Zakai and like Charlotte. So Realm of Caring, our motto is because quality of life matters. So the Realm of Caring is a nonprofit organization. We are a 501c3 nonprofit here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Our mission or saying is research, education, advocacy, and we're improving lives through measurable results. So REALM is an acronym, and that's exactly what it stands for. Our mission, the Realm of Caring Foundation empowers you to enhance your quality of life by providing and expanding cannabinoid research initiatives, educational services, and advocacy programs. Our vision is worldwide knowledge through science, acceptance through knowledge, and the access through acceptance. So let's talk about Realm of Caring's demographics and how it's changed since our inception. So originally, Realm of Caring, we provided a lot of resources for pediatric clients. So a lot of our resources was mainly geared towards epilepsy, the varying types of epilepsy, and seizure types. And it's since changed that we're now serving more adult clients. So it's really interesting to see the demographics and how that's changed in the past 4 years. Currently, we're serving almost 50,000 clients. Over 14,000 are currently using cannabis. And as you can see, our adult population is very different than our pediatric population. So let's start with pediatric diagnosis. Still, the highest diagnoses that we see here is seizure disorder. So we're still seeing about 54.9% in pediatric diagnosis. After that's the autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, cerebral palsy, and cancer. With adult diagnoses, it was actually seizure disorders were the largest diagnosis at one time, but now that's been replaced by pain. So pain is the #1 for adult diagnosis, and then seizure disorders, then cancer, anxiety, arthritis, depression, autism spectrum disorder, PTSD, MS, and then Parkinson's. And we're able to actually capture this demographics because these are clients that we serve. These are people that we've helped on a consistent basis, or that we know who they are, what they're using cannabinoid therapy to address, what their medical concerns are, So it's really cool to track that information because this is all RoC Caring clients and people that we serve. So our services for members, physicians, and community. So we, like I mentioned, serve over almost 50,000 people, and we provide a lot of membership perks for being a client with RoC Caring. We have detailed guides on how to use CBD, how to efficiently dose. We have resources if you're working with an attending physician, videos. So there's a lot of cool resources that we offer. But I'd like to kind of talk about some of the ones that we use the most and some of the ones that we think will be most beneficial for you in not only starting therapy, but sustaining therapy as well. So we do have a guide to CBD, and how you access these resources is actually by creating a client account with us if you haven't done so already. I mentioned that we are a nonprofit organization, so our resources are complimentary to you. If you feel led to donate, we'd be more than happy to have your donations and your support. But once you're logged into your client account, you'll have access to all the resources that you need to be successful with therapy. So we have the guide to CBD, which is what I do suggest for people that are utilizing cannabinoid therapy, or maybe you're new to it and you don't know how it works in your body. So it's really a great introductory article to use. We have how to talk to your healthcare practitioner, using how to use CBD oils. And if you have questions on, what product, how much, that's what the care team is for. Care specialists like myself, you can call us, you can email us, you can come in person, and we can go over the options that you have for you. So we can provide an individualized care plan, if you will. We help you to get started and to help you and coach you along your journey to wellness. The research library is going to be really interesting. We also have over 600 research articles. So if you're looking for research on specific diagnoses, and the conjunction of using cannabinoid therapy to address those concerns, the research library will be a really great resource for you to look at. We do have numerous amounts of research studies. We're going to be talking about that shortly. Online forums. I'm actually the moderator of the forum, so you'll see a lot of posts from me in there. But you can connect with other clients if you have questions or you want to share your experience, what you're doing, what other people are doing. So it's really great to get connected in that community and talk to people that are going through similar issues as yourself. We also have monthly support groups as well. So if you would like to know what the events are with RoC Caring, you can always visit our website, theroc.us, and you can scroll to the bottom of our webpage and you'll see events. And that way you can keep up with everything that RoC Caring is doing, events, and different community engagement pieces there. And we also have Joy Fund. Joy Fund's a relocation program. So Joy Fund is a $5,000 grant. $2,500 of that is something for you to keep, so it's no interest, and then you pay out the $2,500 back to us so we can then forward that along to another family. So we are helping people with that, relocating to access medical cannabis in a medical cannabis state. And then we have RoC Cares, and RoC Cares is our way of helping to offset the cost of cannabinoid therapy. Currently, CBD and other forms of cannabis is not covered by insurance, and so it's out of pocket. So we do help to offset the cost of the burden. So that can go towards your groceries or your rent or whatever you like to use that money for, but that's for you. So we are accepting applications until July 11th, 2018. So that deadline is coming up if you'd like to pursue that. Once again, that's called RoC Cares, and you can apply for that program in your client account once you're logged in. We do have resources for physicians as well. We have literature reviews, and they can also create their own client account as well, or their own practitioner account. So they'll have their own resources similar to the client resources, but they have dosing, research, legislative efforts, and they also have their own forums if your doctor wanted to converse, or if you're a practitioner yourself and want to talk with other physicians. That's a really great way to get linked up in that process. But physicians, especially if you have an attending physician, encourage them to learn more about what you're doing and to be a little bit more hands-on if they're open to that. If not, it's at least great to let them know that I'm at least interested in this, and this is how you can educate yourself. We also have community resources. We do have a CDC in-house, so we have a development center. Zakai actually goes there, and a lot of other children that's in the community. We have a chiropractor, massage therapist. So we're building community resources here at the RoC Caring office. So if you are local in Colorado Springs, we invite you to come down. We have an office tour, see who we are, what we do, meet us in person, and take advantage of the resources that we have. So let's talk about our current research initiatives. I would like to start off by talking about our ORR, which is our Observational Research Registry. Our Observational Research Registry is IRB approved. So when you join that research, you actually get your own registry ID. So your surveys are going to be coming out every 3 months. And you can actually get entered into a drawing to win $50 off the products that we support, or you can get an Amazon gift card if you prefer. But we're exploring multiple diagnoses, so that could be cancer, pain, epilepsy, for example, as well as people that are not using cannabinoid therapy, because we want to control as well. So really the goal of the Observational Research Registry is to monitor and see what people are using, how much they're using, and then tracking their hospital visits, tracking how much they're spending in medications, Medicare, Medicaid, because eventually we want to help to reschedule cannabis and eventually start getting insurance companies to start paying for cannabinoid therapy, because then it's going to be recognized as a legitimate method of healing. So it's extremely important that any data that we collect, that we're using this for a higher purpose, and you're contributing to the greater good. So I'd encourage you to check out the Observational Research Registry. It's at no cost to you, but you're providing a lot of valuable research and data for us to collect. I'd also like to talk about our other research projects. We have a metabolite study, which is essentially a urine study. So we monitored people that are just using CBD products, for example, the products that we support, Charlotte's Web, Elixinol, Mary's Nutritionals, and seeing what's the likelihood of testing positive for THC. It is possible to test for THC, so if that is a concern for you, that study did conclude that it is a possibility, and if it's something that might threaten your likelihood, you might not want to pursue this method of healing. We have CW and Dravet syndrome has concluded, but that study was with the Children's Hospital with Dr. Ma for children that have Dravet syndrome, specifically using Charlotte's Web products. Still the current NFL player study, that is a current study. It has been a bit challenging because of the stigma with players, active players, professional players, for example, in the NFL, not being able to utilize cannabinoid therapy. So we haven't made a lot of leeway in this project yet. But we also have a former professional athlete study, so that could be players that have currently played in a professional sport. We're looking at traumatic brain injuries and CTE, which can be, and it's varied from, whatever you're playing, but it is something that's common between these players and the long-term effects that they have even after they retire. So to say that there's no research or any literature to suggest that CBD or cannabis in general has no medicinal value, we've actually kind of disproven that by having our own research registry, having our other research projects, as well as over the 600 articles that we've collected in our research library. So we have literature reviews saying that CBD has the potential and cannabis has the potential to have anticonvulsant properties, anti-inflammatory properties, antiemetic, meaning anti-nausea, immunosuppressant, anti-anxiety or anxiolytic, antidepressant, antipsychotic, anti-degenerative, and anti-tumoral. So for them to say, when I see them, I'm meaning the government, because the government actually did have a patent on cannabis, there's a lot of medicinal benefits for utilizing cannabinoid therapy, and we do have the research to prove it. So if you'd like to review some research resources, I encourage you to view the Realm of Caring's research library. You can find that at theroc.us/research-library. There's also the international research website, cannabis-med.org, and then the domestic research, the NIH, which is pubmed.gov, and you can actually go to advanced, and you can search by the specific medical condition that you're interested in, and it'll pull up all of the clinical trials, as well as animal studies as well. So let's talk a little bit about legislative efforts. So there's a multitude of states here in America that have different cannabis laws and regulations. So You can see in the dark green all of the medical cannabis states. That includes Colorado, California. California is actually the state that we serve the most realistically, actually. And so you can see in the dark green the states that have established medical programs, also legalized for recreational use. Then you can see in the light green the medical cannabis has been legalized. So you do have access to cannabis. Now, whether you have the types of access that you have, whether that's smoking or tinctures or oils, or if there's a dispensary that you can pick these products up from, that's the initial hurdle to get through, is finding access to the products once your state has been legalized. And then you'll see other cannabis states in the light green that have cannabidiol, which is CBD, that has been legalized. So there are CBD laws for those specific states, where it's very important for you to understand specifically what applies to you in your specific state and become familiar with your the laws, legalities, and your rights as a consumer. And then you'll see in the gray states that don't have any legalizing cannabis, and we're hoping to see that changing very soon. And on the next slide, you'll actually see that there have been some states that have legalized, and there's actually been more. Oklahoma's been recently legalized as well. So we're really seeing this sweeping the nation, and people being more aware of what's available to them and the options that they have, and voting on the options and saying, yes, I want this in my state and I want access to this. So no longer do you have to migrate to a different state. You should have that access where you currently reside. If you want to know a little bit more about legalities, you can look at some of the resources that we have online. It's called What the Hemp. And you can actually type that in at the top of the RoC Caring website, and you'll see a search bar, and then you'll type in What the Hemp. And that will bring up all the legalities, the current laws surrounding CBD, the DEA, the FDA, and what your rights are as a consumer. Feel free to print that out if you're traveling, or if you're visiting the doctor's office and you just want to have, or even just an extra layer of protection to know what's available to you and why. So with the legislative efforts, we are tracking these, and you can see that there's 29 medical cannabis states, 15 hemp legislative states, 5 did not limit the THC amount, and 15 did. So as you can see, it really just depends on where you live and the type of legislature that's in your specific state. Legislative efforts still continue, so I'd encourage you to still advocate for yourself, for your family, for your state, to have access to medical cannabis, especially if you currently do not. We do have some legal resources and just some information for you to know what's in your state, how to access medical cannabis, how to apply for your card. I personally like the first website, procon.org. That's medicalmarijuana.procon.org, and you can actually search by your state. There are some states that accept other medical cannabis cards, so it's really good to know what that looks like on the map and how to get started, especially if you're new to it. And then Americans for Safe Access, they're a really great resource, especially for legal purposes. So if you're being prosecuted, if you're looking for lawyers, if you're looking for information on clarification on your current state laws, they're a really great resource, and they can assist you with that type of inquiry. So we mainly talk about 2 of the most potent or the most prevalent compounds that's in the cannabis plant, and that's typically CBD and THC. Now we know that there's also over 100 other types of phytocannabinoids and other terpenes that's naturally occurring in the plant. But today, for the sake of time and as far as covering the basics, let's talk about CBD and let's talk about THC and the difference between the 2 compounds. So CBD is a major phytocannabinoid from the cannabis plant, which is non-addictive, and research shows that it has more than 52 mechanisms of action. So knowing that this specific compound that's in the plant has so many applicable benefits, and it's just one compound. So THC is also a phytocannabinoid, uniquely found in the cannabis plant. THC works by binding to the cannabinoid receptors concentrated in the brain and central nervous system to produce psychoactive effects. So CBD doesn't get you high, THC does get you high, especially if you take enough of it. The products that we support are high CBD, low THC, so they're not designed to get you high or inebriated, so you can still go about your day-to-day activities unaffected. If you want to know exactly what's in your products, if you're using any of the products that we support, or if you're using another product, request a batch report so you know exactly what's in your product, so you know how much CBD, how much THC, so you can dose yourself effectively. We'll be getting into dosing a little later on in the presentation, but I thought that would be really interesting and a really cool key point to dial in on, just so you know how to safely use these products. So there's many different cannabinoids, and they all go through different phases. You will find the cannabinoids originally starting in CBGA, which is the raw acid form of the plant. So if you think of like juicing cannabis leaves or flowers, that is the raw acidic version of those cannabinoids. So over time, they can actually convert to different cannabinoids. So if you take THCA, for example, has its own medicinal properties, anti-cancer, anti-spasmodic, and anti-inflammatory. If you heat THCA, then it converts to THC, which has its own medicinal benefits. So if you let THC sit out too long, let's say it's just been sitting in your counter, or that could be some flour, that could be oil, it can eventually convert to CBN, which is another phytocannabinoid, and that has its own medicinal properties, mostly known for its sedative effects. So a lot of people that have like insomnia use CBN to utilize the medicinal properties that it offers. So as you can see, all of these compounds, either they're very different, but they're all still the same, and they're all still a part of the plant. So depending on the effects that you're looking for, you can look at certain compounds and decide if you want to incorporate that into your therapy. The caveat is a lot of these compounds are only found in medical cannabis states or recreational cannabis states. CBN, for example, CBG, for example, you can only find those in dispensaries or from a licensed caregiver in your state. Currently, CBD is available nationwide, so in all 50 states it is federally legal, so it's a lot more accessible than, let's say, THC. But do know that when you're using a whole plant extract, especially like the products that we support, they contain all of these naturally occurring compounds just in trace amounts. You're only specifically dosing by the CBD content. But do know that you're ingesting the raw acidic plant versions, as well as all of the other naturally occurring compounds like the terpenes and the flavonoids. Speaking of terpenes, there's a lot of beneficial terpenes that's found naturally occurring in the plant, and it depends on the strain, it depends on the genetic profile of the plant. But you can find alpha-pinene, has its own anti-inflammatory benefits, it's a bronchodilator, antibacterial, aids in memory, and you can find those in pine needles, which is an abundance here in Colorado. So you can find a lot of these in essential oils. If you do doTERRA or any other essential oils that you like, you can, when you smell lavender, you automatically feel like that relaxed ease, you feel like everything all is well. Those are those terpenes that are reacting, and those terpenes are also found in cannabis. So depending on the desired effects that you want, you can kind of pick and choose based on what the plant profile contains, the type of effects that you're looking for. So speaking of linalool, in conjunction with lavender, it's an anesthetic, anticonvulsant, analgesic, and anti-anxiety. I definitely feel those anti-anxiety properties when I smell lavender. It's very calming. Then there's beta-caryophyllene, anti-inflammatory, analgesic, helps the digestive tract, and it's mostly found in abundance in black pepper. So it does have its own medicinal benefits as well. Myrcene, it's a sleep aid and muscle relaxant, also in conjunction, mostly found in hops. And hops is actually a cousin of cannabis. They're actually in the same genus. So as you can see, they're overlying, and a lot of plants have their own terpene or flavonoid profile. And cannabis is no different. So the last one that I'd like to talk about today is limonene, and that has its own anti-anxiety, antidepressant properties, and it also treats acid reflux. And it's mostly found in conjunction with citrus fruits like grapefruit, oranges, and other citrusy fruits in that family. So when we're putting all these together, we're talking about the terpenes, we're talking about the flavonoids, the CBD, the THC. All of those are forming what we call an entourage effect. So like I mentioned, there's over 100 plus cannabinoids and 200 plus terpenes and flavonoids. I'd like to read a quote by Ethan Russo that was quoted in 2011. phytocannabinoid and terpenoid content offer complementary pharmacological activities that may strengthen and broaden clinical applications and improve the therapeutic index of cannabis extracts containing THC or other base phytocannabinoids. Psychopharmacological and dermatological indications show the greatest promise. So when you're using a whole plant extract, you're receiving all of the medicinal benefits that are found in the plant. That includes the terpenes that we talked about, that includes the flavonoids, and all of the other compounds that's in the plant. So the more of those compounds that you have together, the more synergistic they work together. So I'm sure, and if you haven't heard of CBD isolates, where it's just a specific compound, well, you're really isolating just one compound instead of working with the symphony. So instead of just having the conductor, you're missing all of the other important parts and pieces of that symphony and of that artwork. So it's really important to utilize whole plant extracts and receive the medicinal benefits that all of those compounds offer, not only by themselves, but together. So let's talk about the endocannabinoid system. What is the endocannabinoid system? The endocannabinoid system is essential to life, and it relates messages that affect how we relax, how we eat, how we sleep, how we forget, and how we protect. The ECS is isolated and described in the 1992 team of scientists at the Hebrew University. There's a lot of examples of endocannabinoids. So there's anandamide, which is a cannabinoid neurotransmitter. Then there's two arachidonoglycerol agonists. And then there's NADA, N-A-D-A, which is N-arachidonyl dopamine. And then there's 2-arachidonoglycerol ether, which is a nalodin ether, and many more. So there's all of these keys and all of these compounds in the CB1 and CB2 receptors in our bodies that work with these compounds that's in the cannabis plant. So our bodies are like a lock and key. We actually naturally produce these cannabinoids, and some of us produce a little bit more, a little bit little. In that case, it would be like an endocannabinoid deficiency when the body actually doesn't produce enough. And we can get into that a little bit later. But let's talk about the CB1 receptors. So CB1 receptors are located in the brain, not in the brain stem, where the heart and respiration are regulated. So in the CB1, if you look at the figure, you'll see that CB1 is mainly concentrated in the brain. And you'll find that the THC, which is that psychoactive compound that we talked about earlier, binds to those receptors in the brain. So I'm not saying that the CB1 receptors aren't found in other places in the body. It's just more prevalent in the brain. Let's also talk about the CB2 receptors, which are located in areas of the body related to the autonomic nervous system, immune system like your spleen, gastrointestinal system, peripheral nervous system, your heart, your liver, your bones, your reproductive organs. So when you're ingesting CBD, you're ingesting THC, they're going to these concentrated areas of your body and wherever your body has fallen short, because cannabinoid therapy works by accumulation and saturation of those cannabinoids in your body. And that's ultimately the goal. So if you think of like a wet sponge, that's exactly what we want to do to your endocannabinoid system. So the goal is to find a dose that works the best for you as an individual. And there's not going to be a maximum dose. The goal is just to find a dose that works the best for you and how you respond to those doses. So how you respond to those doses is how the CBD and how the THC is reacting on your CB1 and CB2 receptors, not only modulating your symptoms, but the actual root cause of the medical condition itself. So let's look at the brain and the endocannabinoid system and how the CB1 and CB2 receptors are located. So, sorry about that. In the brainstem, you'll see that you're not going to find any CB1 or CB2 receptors in the brain, but you will see them in the hippocampus. So the THC does bind to the hippocampus receptor, CB1 receptors in the brain. CBD does not do that. So it's not. That's why when you look at the brainstem, it's not going to contain any of that. So that's why we can conclude that the CBD doesn't pose any type of dependencies, or you can't overdose from it because it's not actually binding to your body like opiates would, for example. And Fun fact, opiates and cannabis, or CBD specifically, they actually can work together, and we encourage you to work with your attending physician if you decide to do that. But they do work similarly on the body, just differently as far as how far your body can go as far as overdosing on medications, which is possible with opiates and not so much with cannabis. So let's talk about the neuron death triad. So you'll see that there's different phases in how CBD and THC works in your body, especially talking about reactive oxidative stress. For example, that could be free radicals, that could be breaking a bone or having anxiety. So CBD and cannabis in general is a natural antioxidant. It's a natural neuroprotectant. It's a natural neurogenesis. So you can actually repair, rebuild cells, cell structures, a lot of things that have fallen short in the brain, especially if there's developmental delays. And then excitotoxicity. So when you see a lot of the things that you're experiencing from those experiences with anxiety, that can also formulate other symptoms, if you will. So the CB1, the neuromodulation of CB1 glutamate. So CBD is regulating those systems. So over time, with all of these things happening, the reactive oxidative stress, excitotoxicity, and then neuronal inflammation. So that can also look like people that have autoimmune disorders. So anti-inflammatory, and it's also an immune modulator as well. So it works in different ways, as you can see, whatever your body needs. So there's a lot of ways that CBD and THC and terpenes and flavonoids, all of them are working together in this cycle to not only reduce that stress, but also for your body to recover from that stress a lot more effectively. Mechanisms of action. So CBD interacts with many other non-endocannabinoid systems. So CBD interacts with the brain receptors, CB1 neuromodulation, CB2 neuro and immune modulation as well. And it works on the 5-HT1A receptors as well, as you can see in the diagram. So let's say, for example, just to give you a visual, something is providing too much. So it could be too much dopamine, too much serotonin, or if your body's just being overburdened, let's say by firing of neurons, which may cause seizures. So whatever your body's firing and it's firing too much of, CBD can actually say, hey, we actually don't need that much. You can kind of slow down a little bit. You can actually regulate yourself. I'm going to leave a little bit more of this over here and a little bit more of that, and a little bit. So think of it as like a traffic director. It tells your body what it needs and what it doesn't need. It tells your body, hey, stop making this, make more of that. So that's why I mentioned in the beginning that it's not only addressing your symptoms, but the actual root cause of your medical concerns, because it's not only working whatever you're seeing externally, it has to work on everything that's falling short in your body first, repairing, and then you start to see the improvements that you're looking for. So it works with the GABA and glutamate. So GABA, think of it as an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So it actually reduces the electrical firing, and glutamate actually increases the electrical firing. So if you have deficiencies or one is activating more than the other, CBD can help to regulate that. It modulates your ion channels, enhances adenosine, and endogenous anti-inflammatory. So endogenous is internal, exogenous is external factors. So if you're thinking about everything that's in your body, CBD is repairing and replenishing your endogenous system in the cells and cell products that's naturally occurring in your body. It's a strong neuroprotective, and especially say that because people that have like brain injuries, PTSD, anxieties, different things like that, it helps with the damage that has been done to your brain that might be causing some of the episodes of traumatic injuries that you've occurred, and helping your body to repair itself. It is very possible to replace your brain, the cells, cell products, different things like that. We were actually under the impression for the longest time that cannabis kills your brain cells. Don't smoke cannabis. You're going to get dumber from smoking it or using it. It's actually the opposite. It actually replenishes your brain, your cells, cell products. I've assisted people whose children did not speak, they didn't eat, they couldn't feed themselves, they were fed G-tube fed weren't walking, weren't talking, weren't writing, and helping these people with their children along their journey, seeing children that weren't able to walk now walking and playing sports, seeing them eating with their hands, people that were using medications no longer needing them. So seeing just not only how it works in the body, but actually physically how it's affected a person and their livelihood and their quality of life is extremely impressive and extremely rewarding at the same time. So the possible therapeutic applications using cannabis to target the ECS. In the past decade, the endocannabinoid system has been implicated in a growing number of physiological functions, both in the central and peripheral nervous systems and in peripheral organs. Most importantly, modulating the activity of the endocannabinoid system turned out to hold therapeutic promise in a wide range of disparate diseases and pathological conditions, ranging from mood and anxiety disorders, movement disorders such as Parkinson's and Huntington's disease, neuropathic pain, multiple sclerosis, and spinal cord injury, to cancer, arteriosclerosis, myocardial infarction, stroke, hypertension, glaucoma, obesity, metabolic syndrome, and osteoporosis, just to name a few. And if that's a few, I think that's extremely convincing that it has so many different applications. So when speaking of medication and introducing pharmaceutical medication, and if you're currently using pharmaceutical medication, that doesn't necessarily disqualify you from using cannabinoid therapy. But the point of this slide is to show that, because CBD is not, let's say, regulated by the FDA, there's a lot of medications that are not necessarily approved for certain medical conditions. Like Klonopin, for example, is not necessarily beneficial, but it hasn't had that implication for pediatric patients, like in this slide. So a lot of clients that we support are using pharmaceutical medication. Some of them, especially with epilepsy, are using some form of anti-epileptic drug. But it doesn't necessarily mean that using medications are a bad thing, but we don't want to say, well, just because this isn't regulated or there's no, applicable benefit for one condition, there's medication that are used for, sleep that can also be used for seizures or vice versa. So the same thing can happen with cannabis. So we really shouldn't rule out cannabis as a possible usage for medical concerns just because there's nothing behind it saying that there's not FDA approved. So there are potential interactions. This is the anti-epileptic potential interactions with CBD chart. This document's actually found in your client resources once you're logged into your client account on the Realm of Caring website. So this is really going over specifically anti-epileptic drugs. How to read this chart, I know there's a lot of different words and things going on here, but the red line in the middle is baseline. So that's your normal ranges before using CBD. So when you're introducing some of these medications, they have the potential to interact. So they can actually increase in the blood or decrease in the blood depending on the medication and the type of drug interaction that's occurring. So for clobazam, for example, you can see that this medication has the potential to both increase and decrease in the blood, but the highest range is an increase in the blood. So getting a blood serum test, and you can request that from your local physician, your attending physician. You can get this test done before starting CBD and during using CBD. So you can get this test done every 6 to 8 weeks until you see a pattern. Really, the caveat here and really the takeaway is to just space your medication. Space your medication 2 to 4 hours before or after your CBD doses, and that's to reduce the likelihood of drug interactions. Now, we're not saying that that's eliminating drug interactions. We're reducing the likelihood of them occurring. That blood serum test is really what's going to give you the insight on what's happening inside your body. And as well may also be a catalyst for weaning schedule. So if it's one of your goals to reduce medication or to actually take away medication over time, the blood serum test will be a really great start to do that. I will say that you want to make sure that you find stability in cannabinoid therapy first before altering your medication. The less variables, the better. So we don't want to increase CBD doses or change CBD doses the same way we would change medication doses, because if something were to happen, we don't know what's causing what. So it's really important to kind of get an idea on how you want to structure therapy, what your goals are. The guide to CBD that I mentioned earlier will have a lot of great resources on how to start a weaning schedule and what to ask your doctor for. So I definitely urge you to look at that document for further information. And if you have any questions on these medications and the medications you're using, there's a specific enzyme that CBD uses when it's being metabolized in the liver, and we'll be talking about that shortly. But you can actually ask your attending physician or even a pharmacist if and how your current medications potentially interact with this enzyme that we'll be talking about. That way you know, because if you call us, the care team, we won't be able to go into detailed information about that, so we're not medical professionals. So the best thing to do is to ask a medical professional for your specific medication and the enzyme that CBD uses.
Let's do a break.
Okay. Taking a break, we'll be, if you want to get your questions in, that way I can go ahead and start answering them. But we'll be taking about a 20-30 second break, maybe a little longer. So I'll be right back shortly, and I look forward to answering your questions and concerns. All right.
So the question is, in general for sleep, I may need THC, or is there possibly enough help for sleep in CBD alone? And should she try that, or should they try that first?
So for sleep, using CBD alone, or if there's a potential for needing to add additional THC, correct? For the question?
Sorry, it was, yeah. Do they need to add THC, or is there possibly enough help with CBD?
Could you add THC, or is there enough help for CBD? So I can give you some information on this. So I have personally assisted many clients. I've assisted 200-pound men that are just taking like 10 milligrams of CBD and sleeping just fine. With the higher the doses you go with CBD, it can actually start to become more of like a sedative. I actually tell people that as a side effect of CBD, if you will, increases in lethargy or tiredness, as well as increases or decreases in appetite, whatever your body needs to regulate itself. Those are typically the side effects. So if you're noticing, like when you start CBD, and we suggest starting with either like 25 or 50 milligrams of CBD daily and increasing every 3 to 4 weeks until you find a dose that's working for you. So let's say 25 milligrams, if most of your issues are surrounding sleep, so maybe you want to dose closer to the time of day too. So you want to dose maybe in the evening and then again an hour or two before bed, and see if that helps. My husband has sleep apnea and insomnia. He's a disabled veteran, so we've had a lot of issues with sleep, especially surrounding PTSD. And he's about 75 to 100 milligrams of CBD daily, and that's really what helps him to go to sleep. Otherwise, he'd be up for like 3 or 4 days at a time. So it really just kind of depends on the person, your physiology, your metabolism, and also the concentration and your dosing. So from my experience, I do think that CBD, starting there first and seeing how it helps you or not, you can almost certainly work with a care specialist like myself, and we can assist you with troubleshooting and helping you get to an optimal dose that's going to help you with your sleep. Otherwise, you can add additional compounds like THC. If you decide to do THC, maybe look more into an indica strain. We do kind of realize that strains are a little bit fuzzy. It's hard to say indica, sativa, or hybrids, but you most certainly want to look at indicas, more like in the couch. You can find some of those strains if you do some research. Leafly.com has some information about strain research, and weedmaps.com. You can find local dispensaries in your area that carries these types of products because it's going to be state specific. And if you do have access to medical cannabis, not only indica strains, but the CBN that I was talking about, Mary's Medicinals, they are a product that we support. They have CBN patches, they have CBN capsules, and they have CBN transdermal patches. I personally use all three. So if you go to marysmedicinals.com, you can actually search and see if your state is one of the states that you can find their products in. So I do think that CBD, to answer your question, starting with CBD first, seeing how that works for you, try that for at least three months. Give it a trial period, a fair trial period. And if you want to add additional compounds, you most certainly can. And we're not going to discourage you from adding additional THC if you need to. The more cannabinoids, the better. As long as you're tracking how they make you feel and exactly how much you're taking, you should be okay.
So that was the first part of the question. They're also dealing with fibromyalgia pain.
Fibromyalgia pain. Okay.
Or pain in general.
Pain in general. So using CBD to address pain and inflammation, it's going to be a very individualized therapy. So it's possible that you respond really well to low doses. It's possible that we need to continue increasing your doses until we find a dose that works for you. Because fibromyalgia is widespread pain instead of localized pain, it's very difficult to say, oh, you just need a topical. Topicals are really great for like localized pain. You want something that's working not just internally to address the actual root cause of your concerns. I've worked with several clients that have fibromyalgia and are reporting significant improvements of life, quality of life, sleep, pain, inflammation, better ability to like have alerts. So a lot of people that I talk to are really tired, really lethargic, really fatigued. A lot of people say that they've gotten their life back. So if you're looking to talk with clients that have fibromyalgia that are using cannabinoid therapy, visit the forums, talk to people that have similar conditions as yourself, see what they're using, how much they're taking. If you want some research on fibromyalgia and cannabis, I invite you to look at the research library. And then also contact RoC Caring. We would love to talk with you about some options for you as an individual and get you started with cannabinoid therapy.
Awesome. Next question is, you mentioned the endocannabinoid system works like a sponge to fully saturate your body with what it needs or what it's missing. Does that mean higher initial dosing is potentially more effective?
So the endocannabinoid system, what we want to do is saturate the body and think of it like a wet sponge. So what we want to do is accumulation and saturation. So let's say, for example, our medically sensitive dosing, we suggest starting with 25 milligrams. Let's say you respond to 25 milligrams. Great, fantastic. Stay at the dose that's working for you. But if it's not working, every 3 to 4 weeks, you want to increase your dose by your starting dose. So in this example, you want to increase by 25 milligrams every 3 to 4 weeks until you find the symptom improvement that you're looking for. Very rarely have I met anyone that's in the hundreds of dosing CBD as far as the milligram content is concerned. It's really hard to say when you're going to see improvements, but high dosing is not necessarily better. Sometimes lower your dosing is better because it could actually produce unwanted side effects, and you can actually skip a therapeutic dose if your dosing's too high. So think of it as like a bell curve, and we'll be kind of talking about that later, or a roller coaster ride. We're kind of eventually working up to a dose that's going to peak, and this is your dose that's working for you. This is the optimal dose. If you keep dosing, you can actually start going downhill, and you can actually start having regressive behaviors or symptom control. So really the goal is to just kind of stay on top of that mound where it's kind of finding either a range or a specific dose that's working the best for you. And there's not going to be a specific dose for any medical condition. Two people with the same weight using the same medical medication, same medical condition can require 2 different therapeutic doses. So we encourage you to keep a journal, write down what you're seeing, and maybe not even daily, maybe just weekly. This week I felt great, or I can see improvements in these areas. And that will help not only you, but to help us, if you like to contact us, to assist you with troubleshooting your dosing, getting you to that optimal spot.
Next question, how long does CBD take to work?
How long does CBD take to work? I've assisted people that it worked immediately within their first dose. Realistically, it could take a couple of weeks to a couple of months to see the significant improvements in quality of life that you're looking for. So not just looking at the medical condition itself, but other areas of improvement. It could be behavior, cognition, sleep, appetite, sociability, irritability, different things like that. You're most likely going to see improvements in those external areas first before you start seeing improvements in the actual concern. So there is not going to be a specific time frame that CBD works. Like I mentioned, you want to make sure that it's working for you as an individual and to track your progress using the guidelines and the calculators that we provide in your client portal.
Awesome. So have you seen, specifically in fibromyalgia patients, or people who have fibromyalgia, get off their pain meds, opioids, and replace them with CBD?
I have seen people, and I've assisted people with fibromyalgia that have replaced their medication with CBD. It happens all the time. Really, the goal is to find stability in your therapy first. And what I mean stability is that, let's say you found your optimal dose. So you want to stay at that dose for at least 1 to 2 months just to make sure, like, wow, this is controlling my pain. This is controlling the inflammation and all the other symptoms I'm experiencing. Then you can most certainly start to engage in that weaning schedule. I mentioned that blood serum test, so you can monitor your current medication levels and start altering that with your attending physician. So yes, it is possible. Reduce your variables. Refer to the guide to CBD under the weaning pharmaceutical section. I'll give you some insight on how to do that.
Same person wants to know if CBD could help potentially with energy problems or exhaustion.
Yeah, CBD can help with energy problems and exhaustion. And like I mentioned, it really is an individualized process. So it's really whatever your body needs. So if you need the energy, it can work that way. If you need to be put down more like a sedative and you just need to go to sleep or chill out, then it works that way. So it really just depends on what your body needs and what needs to be regulated in your system. I will say that if most of your concerns is energy, then you want to maybe start dosing in the daytime. Try a small dose, see how it works for you. If you want to dose for sleep, then you want to dose more so in the evening time. As long as you're dosing at least 2 to 3 times per day, that allows more opportunities for accumulation and saturation in your body. So it's up to you what time of day that you want to dose, but really your dosing and the product you're using is really what's going to help to determine the success that you're going to have with your therapy.
And last question. This person has a 1,000-pound dairy animal that has chronic staph A infection, so bacterial infection.
Okay.
And what formation could potentially address that? They need help with dosing and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it'll be dependent on the animal's weight, if there's any medication being used. We do have a pet section, mainly focusing on smaller animals, but I have assisted with dosing Coco, the gorilla, the sign language gorilla. The handler actually called us one day. So we've assisted people with horses and cattle. So we do have some information. Do know that there is no research behind this information. This is anecdotal information we've collected from clients, what's working, what's not working. So you would want something concentrated, maybe like the Everyday Advance from Charlotte's Web. There's 5,000 milligrams of CBD in the 100 milliliter bottle. That would be appropriate for a heavier animal. And we can most certainly go over dosing if you'd like to contact RoC Caring, and we can go over care plan for that animal and what that might entail.
Perfect.
Fantastic. So let's talk about quality matter. So we've kind of talked about how CBD works in the body, the entourage effect, who RoC Caring is, what we do. But also let's talk about the products that you're using to use cannabinoid therapy effectively and safely. So the only way to improve efficacy is to measure and repeat with consistent products. So RoC Caring, with the products that we support, like I mentioned, Charlotte's Web, Mary's Nutritionals, Elixinol, and we do have some others that will be coming and joining us shortly. That'll be coming up in the next coming weeks. but we have a quality matters checklist. And this is actually a 20-page, a very intensive process where we actually visit grows, we visit the lab of these companies and make sure that these are consistent, these are quality. They are verified by third-party labs like the CGMP labs and meeting the AHPA guidelines. And you can most certainly research that. You can Google those and see the depth of those and what they entail, as also with self-regulation. But we've condensed the quality matters checklist for the average consumer. So if you go on our website, you can go under clients and you can actually see the products we support, and you'll see the quality matters checklist, and you'll see the products that we support at the bottom. The quality checklist is asking where are these products grown, what are they tested for, molds, pesticides, residuals, what's in them. So you need to ask these questions when you're vetting a company that's not like the products that we support. If you're kind of out on your own and you're looking at other options, you really want to be able to have these questions. And if a company cannot answer these questions in detail, then they're probably not going to be a quality and consistent product that you want to use anyway. You also want to make sure these products also have batch reports. So if you call these companies, you email them and you say, I have this product, this is the serial number or the batch number. They should be able to provide you with a lab report. It's also called a batch report that tells you what's in the products and how to dose them effectively. So let's talk a little bit about side effects of CBD. I did mention increases in lethargy or tiredness, increases or decreases in appetite, whatever your body needs to regulate itself. So there's really no known serious adverse side effects. And I think the most things that I hear on the phones when I'm answering phone calls from clients is nausea, upset stomach, headaches. Those can either be one or two things. It could be a possible drug interaction, or your dosings might be too high. It's kind of hard to say without knowing the full situation, but it really boils down to those two factors, your dosing and possible drug interactions. So if you're noticing any regressive behaviors, hives, rashes, anything like that, you might also want to take in consideration the quality of your products as well. So if these products haven't met those quality standards, they could be contaminated. So make sure to look at all of these processes and all of these factors if this is something that is going on with you or is a concern for you. But it says everything has side effects. No known serious adverse side effects. Chronic use in high doses of up to 1,500 milligrams of CBD daily are reportedly well tolerated in humans. So it's very, very difficult to overdose and to see negative implications with CBD therapy. It is possible if your dosing is too high or if you're very sensitive to start feeling nausea, upset stomach. It's most likely if you're taking really high doses, it's not necessarily the CBD, but the amount of carrier oil that you're ingesting. So you also want to make sure that you're using a quality and maybe a higher milligram content, especially if you're an adult, if you're over 100 pounds. You want to make sure that you're using a concentrated product because the less is more. So the higher the CBD, the less product that you have to take. And so you're not ingesting as much carrier oil, if you will, if you're using more of a lower concentrated product. I did mention the potential drug interactions. We were going over the AED chart, and I was talking about the potential interactions. We're at this time now to talk about that. So CBD is metabolized in the liver by the cytochrome P450. It's called the CYP450. It's the cytochrome, and there's multiple ones that CBD uses, mainly the 2C19 enzyme. So it's the CYP2C19, CYP2C9, and then the CYP3A4. So those are the three enzymes that I was telling you to ask your physician or a pharmacist about your medication. You don't need to tell them that you're using CBD, especially if you don't feel comfortable doing so, but you do want to say, does this medication use this same enzyme when it's being metabolized in the liver? Yes or no? And if yes, what might those side effects look like if there is a potential for interaction? So you would have to take a lot and use a lot of cannabis versus when we're talking about deaths and addictions and different things like that. 1 to 20,000 to 1 to 40,000 like joints to one. If you had an aspirin and you took one, then there's really no implications as far as, oh, this is going to kill me. But if you took 20, then there's like a huge reality that could potentially damage your liver and ultimately cause death. Not the case with cannabis. It's actually very, very difficult to overdose, and you would have to do it deliberately. It's physically impossible to do so. There are no documented deaths from cannabis overdose, yet every 19 minutes there is a pharmaceutical death in the U.S., which is extremely concerning. So really monitor the person closely for any negative side effects, get pharmaceutical levels checked, and be followed by a physician. So really those are some things to consider when you're using cannabinoid therapy. When you first get started, while you're using cannabinoid therapy, just make sure to, like I said, keep journal entries, monitor how you're feeling. If you're not feeling like this is working for you, we might need to revisit dosing. We might need to revisit the product that you're using. You might want to revisit the pharmaceutical levels in your body. Being followed by a physician, even if they're not necessarily supportive of you using cannabinoid therapy, is helpful. They're not going to say that it's mandatory because we give you the tools that you need to succeed, but it is helpful to have someone following you. Like I mentioned earlier, your physician can also create their own practitioner account on the Realm of Caring website. It is free to them, and they'll have all the dosing information as well. Safety. It is not accurate that cannabis has no medicinal value or that information on safety is lacking. So should cannabis be a first-line treatment? In my personal opinion, I think that if you have access to it, it's definitely worth giving it a try, especially before doing any type of invasive or permanent surgeries. A lot of people want to use more of a holistic approach before, let's say, doing chemo or radiation when it comes down to cancer, or if someone has to have an operation on their brain or on their intestines. A lot of people want to try something that might correct and rectify the situation before doing something that's permanent or might be damaging to their body long term. So in my personal opinion, I do think that cannabis should be first-line treatment. Most of the time it is second to third. A lot of people are using CBD and cannabinoid therapy as third-line treatments, which is perfectly fine to do. But the sooner that you can catch your symptoms and manage those symptoms with CBD, the more opportunity that you have that you don't need to use those medications, you don't need to go into surgery, and you can improve your quality of life by using something that's a whole plant hemp-based medicine. So special considerations, however, are pregnancy and nursing. We actually don't have any conclusive research suggesting that it is safe in utero or during breastfeeding. So we can't say yes or no, this is going to be harmful to the baby, but I will say that Charlotte's Web, for example, was originally made, for a child, Charlotte. She's a pediatric client. We do have babies. We have infants that are using cannabinoid therapy to address brain malformations or serious implications due to birth or birth defects. So it's really hard to say that it's not working, but we can't really endorse it. Adolescents, there are potential for abuse, especially like high THC products, or if they get into a stash of gummies or cookies or something like that. We really don't know long term if there is abuse in adolescents, let's say high schoolers or middle schoolers. The brain is still developing until mid-20s, so it's really hard to say how that's necessarily impacting cognitive and behavioral health and wellness. You should be really cognizant on the products that you're using, how much, and treating it as more of a medicinal benefit than a recreational benefit in this context. In psychiatric illnesses, what comes to mind is schizophrenia. I have assisted people that have schizophrenia and other dissociative disorders and mental illnesses. It can be very fragile. Too much THC can exacerbate and may cause increased anxiety or paranoia or have mental breakdowns. So it is very important when you are working with someone, or when we're working with someone that has a mental illness, to be cognizant of dosing and how much THC is being ingested. We do have a really helpful calculator. It's called the Cannabinoid Calculator. It's located on the dosing page once you're logged into your client account, but it will tell you exactly how much CBD and THC is being ingested either per day or each dose, if you really want to calculate that information. So there are multiple administration methods. In realm of caring, we've tried to capture all different types. That way people have options for their therapy. So a lot of people use a combination of administration methods. Of course, you could do either or. Vaporizing is one. That's actually my personal favorite way to medicate, actually, is using a vaporizing product. So that could be a vape pen, that could be actually vaporizing cannabis or CBD if it's a CBD vape pen. It is more rapid onset. So you do feel the relief within seconds to minutes, depending on what you're using it for. Anxiety, especially like I have anxiety sometimes. I do work with people that have anxiety. The vape pens is something that is a supplemental addition to therapy. So if you're having a difficult time, take a few puffs of your vape pen, take a break, see how that works for you, and add a little bit more if you need to. So it's not something that's meant to control your symptoms. It's helpful for breakthrough pain, inflammation, or attacks if you're feeling that. So there's kind of a time and a place for vaporizing. Topicals are really great, especially if you have localized pain like fibromyalgia, MS, arthritis, sprains, different things like that. Even like skin conditions like psoriasis or eczema, you can use topicals, topical treatments. And you want to put that where you're experiencing the pain. So it's not necessarily systemic because it doesn't actually go throughout the body. So you can use that also as a supplemental addition. Like I said, not meant to replace long-term therapy. So you still want to be using something internally. But the topicals are really great, especially if you need additional relief or support. Transdermal applications are really great, especially if you're not really a fan of, dosing oils or smoking or vaporizing, or if you can't do those things due to maybe medical concerns or even personal preference. Transdermal applications are really helpful. For example, Mary's Medicinals and Nutritionals has CBD patches, they have THC patches, CBN patches. Those can last anywhere between 8 to 12 hours. And you can cut those patches in half or in quarters. You can put them on localized areas of pain or on top of your feet for whole body wellness. So those are really great, especially if you're on the go or if you don't really have time or don't want to use any other type of administration. Rectal dosing is another way to utilize specifically oils, or you can even make your own suppositories. They're really helpful for people that, if you are using it as like a rescue, as a lot of people do sometimes, or if you have like cancer, like colorectal cancer, or if you have endometriosis or ovarian cancer, you want to dose as close to the cancer as possible. So rectal dosing is really great for that. And also if you're adding additional THC, it doesn't go through the liver, it goes directly into the bloodstream because of the blood vessels that's in the rectum. So it's actually more like rapid onset. It's going directly into your bloodstream and throughout your body, and it also helps to reduce the psychoactivity of THC. G tubes and J tubes, as well as Mickey buttons, you can most certainly use CBD. I talk to people all the time that are tube fed, and you want to make sure that you're using an oil. We can most certainly talk about, what types if you are looking to use this to address a concern. But you want to use an unflavored oil because any type of flavoring may degrade the plastic. But you want to make sure if you're doing oil dosing through tubes to either put the oil through first and then flush with food, or mix the oil with the food and then rinse with water. Water and oil don't mix, so you don't want to do oil and then flush it with water. It will not work. Capsules and sublingual methods are probably the most commonly used and most widespread used. Really the main differences between capsules and sublingual dosing, like with an oil. Sublingual dosing, under the tongue, or buccal dosing in the cheeks, the cannabinoids are going directly into the bloodstream through the mucous membranes in the mouth. So it is going directly into your body more rapidly than, let's say, capsules would. Capsules need to go through your GI tract and the metabolic processes in your liver. So you might lose potency with using capsules. We're not discrediting capsules, but if you decide to use capsules, consider the differences with bioavailability. Capsules, if you take them with a good fatty food, peanut butter, yogurt, avocado, for example, maybe a glass of almond milk, does help to increase absorption in your body and to maximize your dose. Sublingual dosing, you don't need to do that, but you can most certainly follow that up with food. It's not a requirement, but it just may help to increase absorption in your body. Sublingual dosing is, in my personal opinion, more effective than capsules because of the rapid onset and the amount of cannabinoids your body is what's being used within the 30 to 60 seconds that you're holding the oil in your mouth. Dosing. So the dosing that we have here is really mainly based on Charlotte's Web, but we do have dosing calculators for all the products that we support, every single one. So if you have a specific product, what you want to do is look at the dosing guidelines, whether that's pediatric, under 100 pounds, over 100 pounds would be considered an adult. And we also have cancer dosing guidelines. So you can use either the pediatric dosing calculator, we have videos on how to use these calculators, as well as the adult dosing calculator to calculate your dose on the specific product that you purchased. So we do give you the first 13 to 16 weeks, especially for the adult dosing guidelines of what your therapy is going to look like and how to titrate your dosing over time. You can most certainly call RoC Caring. We'd be more than happy to provide some insight on what products to use and how much if you'd like to pursue that. But do know that all the dosing information that's found on this screen is also found in your client account and is complimentary to you at this time. I do want to make sure to reiterate to space pharmaceutical medications at least 2 hours from your CBD doses. Be aware of potential drug interactions. Frequent monitoring, that could be journal entering, for example. Getting baselines on your medications, especially if it's concerning to you that there's potential for interactions. And transitions to a new bottle for sensitive clients. So if you are using a product and you get a new batch, it is helpful to maybe get a batch report because there are sometimes varying. So there could be 55 milligrams per milliliter or 52 milligrams per milliliter. It doesn't really change very much, but your dosing can potentially change. So it is helpful if you are, let's say you start a new bottle and you're not seeing the benefits that you were seeing with the previous bottle, you might have to alter how you're dosing and possibly mixing the two oils if you have residual from your previous bottle. That's a separate conversation and it doesn't happen very often, but there is a way to rectify that situation if it comes up. So why slow and steady? And I mentioned earlier that bell curve. We really want to make sure that we give each dose an appropriate amount of time and see how it works in your body. So that's why we suggest increasing your dose every 3 to 4 weeks until symptom improvement is found. Not always is a dose increase the answer. Sometimes a dose decrease is the answer, especially if you're receiving regressive symptoms. So what I mean when I was talking about that bell curve, that when you actually pass your therapeutic dose, you can actually start to experience that. So if you're seeing relief and you're not seeing it or it's getting worse, that means you might want to go back to the dose that was working before and stay there for a while and see how it affects you. It's even more important for slow and steady approach for people that have Lyme disease, for example, because of the Herxheimer reaction. We do have a separate orientation for Lyme. If you do have Lyme or know someone with Lyme, dosing is very different. It is helpful to work with a Lyme literate doctor as well because it can be so hands-on. Typically, a couple of drops getting started is recommended because of the die-off effect. CBD is an antiviral, antibacterial, so it does kill off a lot of those things. So it is a natural detoxifier. Also with PANS and PANDAS, we also make sure that dosing is a little bit more hands-on and making sure that we're dosing appropriately for that individual and how their body is handling the CBD. So slow and steady is really important, making sure to give yourself ample time before changing your dosing and seeing how you respond to each dose. So reasonable expectations, I know it was asked, how long is it going to take to see improvements? It could take a couple of weeks to several months. We typically say to allow anywhere between 4 to 6 months before maybe trying something different. Let's say you tried Charlotte's Web, for example, for 4 to 6 months and it wasn't really what you were hoping for. Well, that's okay. Let's try something different. We might need a different extraction method. We might need a different concentration or plant profile. People respond differently to different things. So if you've tried one product and it doesn't work, doesn't mean CBD is not going to work for you at all. Just means that we might have to do something different or just try a different approach or a different administration method to see if you respond better. It's not an overnight therapy, so it does take some time to work and some tweaking and some lab work to be done, especially if it's more hands-on or if you have cancer. knowing, getting your lab results so you can know, okay, metastasis and apoptosis, like where you fall in that category and how and what you're seeing in your body. So titrating up slowly, ultimately, in essence, is the goal. So really, you also want to decide, what does success mean to you? So decide what success looks like for you and your family. So does that look like, improvements in the severity and duration of seizures, how long it takes to recover from seizures? What is your pain rating? If you're struggling with pain, are you seeing any difference in how you're going about day-to-day activities? Getting measurable labs done. And you can get those done maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the type of lab work that you're getting done. Scans, sleep, mood, appetite, sociability, cognition, and quality of life are your markers and your measurements of success. So making sure that you're consistent and you're dosing daily, at least 2 to 3 times per day, like I mentioned earlier. You're objective and you're using any other type of online tools or apps. I personally use an app called Relief. It's RELEAF, and I just kind of type in, okay, what did I use today, how much, and what did I see? And that app actually tracks everything for you. So if you're not like a pen and paper type and you do everything on your phone, that might be a really helpful tool for you to use. And you can also utilize the RoC registry. And that's also where we're capturing your data as well, and that's also being utilized by Johns Hopkins University. So any information that you have while you're tracking will also be helpful for your research surveys. So let's briefly talk about the half-life of CBD. So when you first get started, typically the half-life is about 9 hours. Over the time, it can actually build in your system to about 72 hours. So when we're talking about that accumulation and saturation in your body, so that's why we suggest dosing 2 to 3 times per day, because you're going to get to a point within the day where those CBDs actually starting to metabolize out your system. Then you want to replenish that back in your body, because that's how it works. So if you don't have enough CBD in your system, then you're not going to have the symptom relief that you're looking for. So if you haven't found your therapeutic dose, I encourage you to continue going, monitoring how frequently you're dosing and what times a day that you're dosing as well. There is not going to be a specific time of day that you have to dose, and there's not a specific time frame between the CBD doses that you need to dose. For example, if you only have between 2 and 4 p.m. in the afternoon to dose, then dose at 2 and then maybe dose again at 4. If that's all you can fit in your current schedule, works best for you and your current family schedule. But with this, it's saying that the half-life is takes about 5 half-lives for the CBD to be in your body. So making sure that there's not going to be any tests to say, what the CBD concentration looks like in your body. Really, that's what the symptom relief and your quality checklist is going to look like, your measurable results. So for further reading, I'd encourage you to review the Cannabis Health Index by Yui Blushing, his PhD. Cannabis Revealed by Dr. Bonnie Goldstein. The Cannabis Evolution and Ethnobotany, I love that book, by Clark and Merlin. And The Medicinal Power of Cannabis by John Hicks, MD. We have a couple physician statements. Dr. Ora Davinsky, Director of Comprehensive Epilepsy Center. For patients who have had little success in treating their seizures with other medications, CBD could be a last resort, and I'm hoping that becomes a first resort for you if you have the opportunity. Dr. John Giantis, this could be a new therapy for any intractable condition. And I would like to, at this time, talk about RoC Caring Friends and Family Program. We are a nonprofit organization, so this is our sustainability program. Your donations are what's allowing orientations like this one to happen, for us to accept new families into RoC Cares, for us to accept new families into the Joy Fund, which is our relocation program, and to continue all the wonderful works that we're doing here at RoC Caring. It is optional to do so, but you can most certainly go on our website. You can join Friends and Family. There's different levels. If you'd like to give a certain level, we'd be more than happy to provide any type of documentation that you need for taxes. Or you can give a one-time donation if you felt led to do so. There's a lot of perks for different levels, so I'd encourage you to check some of those out. But we'd love to have you a part of the family, and we appreciate your support. We also want to let you know that we do have some volunteer opportunities here in Colorado and remotely. Volunteers have always played an important role in the development of this organization. We need our volunteers. They bring a creativity and vitality that is necessary for our growth. You can join us at www.theroc.us/volunteer to learn more information and to get on board with our volunteer opportunities. So we care, and we care a lot. That's kind of our thing. So we encourage you to reach out to us. You can call us 719-347-5400, option 1. You can email us, info@theroc.us, or you can set up a phone appointment to speak with a care specialist like myself. You can do that at theroc.us/phone, and you can request a time and a date that works best for you to connect with us. We'd be more than happy to provide any information, resources that you need if you're looking for doctors. So we're here to help you and to be on your side and to encourage you and to build you up in this therapy. It is a lot of information, but we provide the resources that you need to be successful, and we take a great pride in providing that type of education for you. So we really appreciate you joining us today. Once again, my name is Lacey. I'm a care specialist here at RoC Caring. It's been a pleasure to deliver this information for you, and we really appreciate you joining and taking out the time of your day to learn a little bit more about cannabinoid therapy. So you know how to reach us. If you need anything, please contact us. We'd be more than happy to help. Thank you so much.